commissioners. Welcome, commissioners and members of the public. Just as a reminder for the members of the public, please stay off camera during the commission meeting and hold your comments until the end. I'll cut out a little time for public comment. You can always drop something in the chat if you want to secure your spot at the end. We got a packed agenda today, lots of reports and some voting for chair and a vice chair. But first, we'll get started with roll call, and I'll pass it over to you, Annalise, for that.
Actually, Ashley is going to help us
Oh,
out with
Ashley.
roll call.
Thank you, Ashley.
Yeah, so I'm going to say everybody's name, so please just say if you're here or not. I apologize if I mispronounce anybody's last name. Annalise and I went through that earlier, but never know. So I'm going to start with Caprice Massey. Okay, Caroline Cruz.
Here.
Debbie Jones. I think I see
Here.
her. Eric Davis. Fernando Pena.
I'm here.
Frankie Hoopy.
Here.
Jennifer Searley.
Here.
Julia Mines. Katie Jokinen.
Jokinen here.
Jokinen. I was so close. All right. Kelly Minty. I saw Kelly join. You got
Kelly is here.
yes, I just saw that. And then Mike Obiero,
Here.
Sharon Dursey Martin,
I'm here.
Marilla Simmons.
Oh, Shira, hi, I'm here.
Oh, hi, sorry. Stacy Andioni. Wait, I'm so sorry. Stacy. Is Stacy here? Tim Lynch,
I'm here.
Tony Vesna,
I'm here.
Vanessa Nordyke, Judge Clara Rigmaiden.
Here.
And is Senator Reynolds or somebody from their office here?
Hi, this is Kelsey McCauley, Chief of Staff for Senator Reynolds. I'm here and listening on her behalf.
Got it, thank you. And then John Pugsley is he here for Representative Sanchez?
Hi, Ashley. Yeah, and the boss might jump on. I'm not sure. She's at PDX.
Okay, thank you for the update. All right, we're good to move on. Thank you, guys.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. So for objectives for the meeting, Annalise is going to provide a quick director update. Then we'll move into voting on recommendations to the governor for our chair and vice chair positions. We'll get an update from Wes on the school intervention pilot projects. We'll have our very first comprehensive plan quarterly update. And then we'll end with updates from our committees and public comment. And with that, Annalise, go ahead and provide us a director update, please.
Thanks, Tony. Ashley, you want to bring up the slides? I just want to kick us off by thanking Tony for being here. Tony, I think you know the ADPC family is here for you if you need anything at all. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. But I'm going to shift over to some happier news. And I think we're even going to show you a quick picture here in a minute. Just a heads up that Stephanie Condon, our fearless, amazing communications person, is out for the summer because she gave birth to a child. Ashley, I don't see the slides. I could tell Ashley was like, look at what I'm showing you. Like, oh, it's not quite there. Not quite there. And we also, it's a public meeting, so we won't keep it up too soon, but welcome to baby Dylan. You'll notice that he is wearing the official, oh yeah, baby onesie. So if you are having a child this year, you too will join the Oh Yeah Club. Maris Alden, one of our newest commissioners who represents health insurers, is also going to be out for the summer. So just wanted to throw that out there to folks. I know we have 2 more babies coming this summer. And so if folks can really make sure to work with us if you have a planned absence so that we can make sure we have quorum. So those are exciting updates. I don't have a name or announcement from Maris yet, but maybe she'll send us one before next month. I also want to note, while Stephanie is out, that means we're taking on the newsletter role and the blog role. She has prepared us like tremendously. We have a step-by-step. We did the last newsletter on Friday, all by our lonesomes as a team. It took all of us to do what Stephanie normally does. So if you have newsletter topics you'd like us to cover, some of you are going to be hearing from staff. We have things planned out through the summer, and we're going to do some interviews with some of you. So if you have any ideas, please let us know. My only other I have one more quick update, and then we're going to do a poll about our meeting this summer. So Opioid Settlement Board, always like to keep you guys updated on that. We are continuing to discuss how we're going to allocate the remaining $13 million that's left for this biennium. Folks will remember we allocated some already to Save Lives Oregon and to the behavioral health resource networks through OHA to close some of their gap. But we are probably going to be pursuing some kind of somewhat open request for proposal process. And we're talking with OHA about what that's going to look like. And we might get to this a little later in the quarterly update. We continue to talk through some ways to align funding with the comprehensive plan and how to operationalize that. So more to come on that, but keep an eye out for that. And then the last is just, we usually cancel one of the summer meetings. It's not completely clear whether you would all prefer us to cancel July or August this year. And so we wanted to do a quick little poll while we are here in the meeting to see if we could make a decision on that. So I think Ashley is going to launch the poll. And I think we'll ask commission members. So even if you're non-voting, if you could please vote. And it is in the positive. Would you like to meet in July or August? So this is, would you rather meet in July or would you rather meet in August? And so then the one that gets the most votes is the one that we will keep. So if anybody, if I initially said that wrong in a confusing way and you need to change your vote, just let us know in the chat.
Annalise, I know you had mentioned at one point having a hybrid. Are either one of these, would you be looking at that for these or just our regular virtual meetings?
I think we'll keep, whichever one we keep in the summer, we'll keep virtual to maximize participation. We still might be looking at an in-person in June, but I have really fallen down on having conversations about that. So maybe an in-person in June, we'll let you know. We'll try and figure that out very soon here. And then one in-person or hybrid in the fall. So we'll give that one more second, and that will actually be the end of director's updates before we launch into the chair vice chair recommendations. So if anybody has any questions or if I missed anything, feel free to raise your hand. And it looks like July is the winner. So we will keep the July 13th meeting and cancel the August 10th meeting. Unless we get a few more votes here. But it looks like that's the decision. Chat for folks.
Okay, awesome. Are you done,
Okay.
Elise?
Yes. And
Okay.
Ashley, do you want me to end the poll or do you want to end the poll? There we
I
go.
just
Perfect.
ended
We're
it.
good.
Okay, cool. So we'll move into our nomination process for chair and vice chair. Now, just as a reminder, these are recommendations that we make to the governor's office, and the term will start in July, which means for me, my term will be ending in June. I've been happy to serve. You want to go to the next slide? Um, just to kind of go over the process, any commissioner may nominate themselves or another commissioner during a public meeting of our commission. That's today. To be considered, the nominated commissioner must accept the nomination, and then voting shall commence after all nominations have closed. We will tally the votes by roll call, absent of a motion for an executive session. Go ahead to the next slide. Just a reminder of our terms. It will commence on June 30th of each numbered year. Commission officer will be elected to a 2-year term and may be re-elected up to 2 consecutive terms. If officer fills more than 1 year of vacancy under 2.4 below, then they shall be re-elected up to 1 consecutive term. If it becomes vacant, if the chair becomes vacant during the term of office, the vice chair shall fill in for the remainder of the term of the chair. If the office of vice chair becomes vacant, an interim vice chair shall be elected to fill the remainder of the vice chair's term. And then any officer may resign at any time by delivering written notice to the director and governor. Just real quick reminder, the chair's responsibilities shall include the following: preside at the commission meetings and official commission functions, and then coordinate with the ADVC director on the agenda of the commission. And the vice chair's responsibilities shall include presiding over the commission meetings if the chair is unavailable. What we have done in the past has also included the vice chair in meetings with Annalise related to the agenda. So you can go to the next slide. Now you can stop sharing now. So we will start with the chair nomination. Is there anyone who would like to nominate somebody? Debbie.
Yeah, I got my hand up there. Just, and being the vice chair, it was an honor to be able to do that. And in conversations with Tony and Director Dolph, sometimes in committees, it's like, oh, it's a natural process to have the vice chair move up to the chair. But I really want to nominate Commissioner Kelly Menti for the chair. I really think it is be important for us to have that county perspective in this position and representing southern part of Oregon to an additional perspective that we always don't have. So I've really enjoyed the opportunity, but I personally really want to concentrate on my role as primary prevention subcommittee chair and enthusiastically nominate Commissioner Menti as the chair.
All right, thank you, Debbie. Commissioner Minty Morse, do you accept the nomination?
I do accept the nomination.
Okay, and is there anything you would like to say?
Well, I was really hopeful that Debbie wanted to do it. So when she wanted to focus on committee work instead, I totally respect that. I feel very honored that this nomination is happening. And I do think that the more I mulled it over about why would this make sense for me to lead this group, even though I don't have the technical expertise or the direct engagement that many of you do. I do understand the value, if you will, of having someone with a really broad, holistic view to lead this group, because really my job as chair would just be to help elevate the discussions and help bring out your perspectives. And it's sort of less about what I think and more about helping elevate your voices. So with that, I would accept this nomination and I'd be really happy to help facilitate this group.
Thank you, Kelly. Do we have a second for Debbie's nomination?
This is Fernando. I will second.
Thank you,
Oh, we got
Fernando.
2 seconds. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, 2 seconds, seconds and thirds. Is there any discussion from the commission? Anyone want to ask a question, anything like that? Okay, seeing none. Ashley, are you gonna take the vote?
I am, and we're just gonna do another roll call vote, so I'll call everybody's name, and we're gonna start with Caprice Massey.
I support and affirm this. Yay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Caroline Cruz,
Yes.
Debbie Jones was the nomination, so Fernando Pena, second.
Yes.
Yes, double yes. Frankie Hoopie,
Yes.
Jennifer Searley,
Yes.
Julia Mines. Oh, sorry, she's not here today. Katie Jokinen,
Yes.
Kelly Minty,
Yes.
Mike Obiero,
Yes.
Sharon Dursey Martin.
Yes.
Okay. We've got Stacy, who's not here. Tim Lynch.
I think Stacy may have come in.
Oh, is she here?
Here.
Oh, here. Cool. Put you down.
And did we miss Shira?
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry, I was looking for your first name on the list that I have. Tony Vesna.
Yes.
And we skipped over me, but I say yes as well. Tim Lynch.
Oh,
Okay.
I was just getting to you. Perfect. Vanessa Nordyke. Not here. Okay. And that concludes the vote.
Okay. Well, congrats, Commissioner Minty Morris.
Thank
And I will move us on to vice chair nominations. I just want to start by thanking Debbie for serving as vice chair and serving as chair of our prevention committee, and also just respect your desire to put all of your energy into prevention. I also have been holding double, triple duty on the ADPC for a long time, and while it's a passion of mine to serve, it's also hard when you have another job and you're on multiple committees and trying to track everything. So I think this is a great move that's going to allow us to be most effective. I would like to nominate Sharon Dursey Martin for vice chair for a few different reasons. One, I know Sharon. I've known her for a long time. I know that if she accepts it, she'll take it serious and she'll do a really good job. She also has the lived experience and technical experience of working in the field. Sharon, is that something you would accept?
I'd be honored. Yeah. I think there's been a lot of heavy lifts by the ADPC, and I love the spirit of rotation, and I'm energized to step in and help out however I can.
All right, thanks, Sharon. Do we have any other nominations? Could I get a second for Sharon?
This is Fernando. I will second.
Any discussion by any of the other commission members? Okay, Ashley, move us on to the roll call.
All right. Caprice,
Yes, please.
Caroline Cruz,
Yes.
Debbie Jones,
Yes.
Fernando Pena,
Yes.
Frankie Hoopie,
Yes.
Jennifer Searley,
Yes.
Julia Mines, Oh, I keep saying that and she's not here. Katie Jokinen,
Yes.
Kelly Minty,
Yes.
Mike Obiero,
Yes.
Sharon Dursey Martin,
Yes.
Shira, sorry. Shira Marilla Simmons,
Yes, it's Shira.
Shira, I'm
Yeah.
so sorry. I'm the
okay.
worst at
That's
names.
okay, Ashley. I
It's
do
okay.
the same thing, and the more I mess it up, the more I mess it up. So it's
Yeah,
okay.
that's exactly what's happening to me right now.
It's just how it
Call me shy. It's easier. It's fine.
is.
All right, Tim Lynch,
Yes.
Tony Vesna,
Yes.
Vanessa Nordijk,
So I think we need to go back to Stacy, and I think Julia may have joined.
oh, is Julia Mines here? I think I see.
Yes, I am.
I know she wasn't here. Julia, we're doing the vote for vice chair. If you,
Oh, okay.
Sharon Dursey Martin has been nominated. If you would like to vote, but I know you're coming in late.
Yeah. I'll vote for it.
Okay, did I miss anybody?
Did we get Stacy?
Stacy? Stacy, do
Yes.
you? Okay, yes. Thank you.
Hi, this is Moxie Loeffler. I just joined. What are we voting on?
We're voting on Sharon Dursey Martin as vice chair.
Oh, that sounds great. Yes.
Thanks, Moxie.
Okay. And I just now realized it was silly to ask Sharon if she wanted to vote yes. So great. Roll call has been conducted and the vote's good.
Awesome. Well, thanks, everybody. These recommendations they'll go to the governor. In my notes, it says it'll take a few months. So we're planning to make the chair transition after July 1st, hopefully by July. Not that I haven't had a great time. All right. Moving us on to some updates. First, we got an update from Wes on the school intervention pilots. We want to feature this as one of the early successes of the plan. Our youth identified this concept as a strategy to address youth SUD, and we're able to leverage some OHA funds for the pilots in 3 districts. Anyways, you can go over that, Wes. I want to thank OHA for assisting us in launching this pilot. So thank you to our agency partner.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Wes Rivers, Senior Policy Analyst with the Alcohol and Drug Policy Commission. I wanted to update you on one of our OYA strategies related to supporting school-based early intervention. So it's coming up. Great. If you'll go to the next slide, please, Ashley. Thank you. So just a little bit of background. As you might know from the OYA strategies, this was one of our bigger school-based strategies that we considered. So the young people put forward last year to develop a comprehensive regional school treatment and recovery program in public schools that don't have substance use disorder services, with screening, culturally responsive providers, trauma-focused supports, telehealth, peer recovery programs, and educator training. One of the ways that they thought about this in terms of a program was, what are some of the supports that were missing from schools in my own experience? And so what would have been helpful for me early on in my journey to recovery in interacting with school systems where often young people are interacting. So I think some of the rationale is here. Some of the data that they use to inform their decision is here. So I won't go over this in too much detail, but I think one of the points that they brought up is 96% of youth with substance use issues are still attending public schools. And so it's a really critical intervention point. and schools are under resources to effectuate robust early intervention services. So this is a theme that comes up also in primary prevention, but we do not equip schools well with the supports that they need to provide some of these supports. So in that spirit, no one state agency provides sustainable funding for early intervention, engagement to treatment and recovery in schools. The only one that does is ODE with respect to the Recovery Schools program, which is another one of our strategies, and we can talk about at another point. But today we're really focusing on this early intervention subject. Next slide. So I just want to echo Tony's appreciation. We have had a lot of really robust agency partnership around this concept. So partners at OHA Public Health, partners at OHA Health and Policy Analytics, and OHA Behavioral Health Division, Oregon Department of Education, and the Oregon Health and Sciences University have all come together to support this program. And so a lot of partners at the table really wanting to support our young people in achieving their goal with respect to developing this program out. So it's a two-pronged partnership. The first is around the actual direct grants to schools. So this is fun. As I mentioned, we have a robust group of partners. Right now, it is funded from a blend of general fund, which is from the Public Health Division's Adolescent School Health Unit, as well as federal funds from the SUBSERS block grant. We are in the process of developing out 3 grants in Eastern and Central Oregon through the Rural Health Transformation Project. And so that will be, I'll get more into those schools at a different point. For my Eastern and Central Oregon commissioners, I promise you they're coming. But I don't have enough information yet. We don't have agreements signed, so I don't want to speak too soon about people's projects. But they're coming. So really, it is a grant for planning this school year, and really delivering services next school year. So $100,000 over that course of time to develop out alternatives to discipline policy and protocols for youth caught with substances. So what happens when a youth is caught with substances, either on school campus or at a school-based event or in the community? What happens next? How does a school respond in a supportive way? Screening, brief intervention, and referral to treatment, expert protocols and practice. So also something that we know is really effective in making sure that schools and their community partners are equipped to support young people when they are screened as needing some support. On-site outpatient or partnership with outpatient providers, and then recovery supports. So recovery supports short of having a recovery school. The focus was rural school districts and alternative education settings. That was from our young people really wanting to support school environments that might not have access to robust funding mechanisms for some of these supports. Technical assistance. So there's individual and group TA with all agencies. All agencies are providing staff to support this grant. So that's one of the cool things about it, is every single one of our technical assistance pieces is staffed by representatives for all of the agencies. And then finally, we're developing out an evaluation to provide not only some statewide information about how effective this program is, but also local community level education outcomes, so that our school partners can sell this to their communities as something that is needing long-term investment. Next slide. The second prong is our partnership with ECHO, the Oregon Health and Sciences University, to develop out an ECHO program for school-based prevention and early intervention and adolescent substance use disorder. So this was developed in partnership between OHSU, ADPC, and school and community practitioners. And it was permanently funded by House Bill 3321. So the language in the bill is driving us towards primary prevention. As you know from our prevention committee, we were not quite yet ready to based on kind of HB 3321's other provisions within HB 3321, the assessment on what we would want schools to know. First off, some development on the Center of Excellence. So we really focused the first iteration of this ECHO program on early intervention. And so school-based ECHO supports so that it supports school administrators and supporter roles. We have 80 plus school and public health participants, including all of our grantees. It's required for our school pilot grantees. So it is an opportunity for shared learning and partnership through the grant to learn about early intervention and some secondary and tertiary prevention methods. It is also a great opportunity for them to partner with other school districts in their region to think through opportunities to partner with providers and recovery community centers, for example. Next slide. Okay, so I want you so all of the pilot sites are in their planning phase and working with their community partners to really think through how best to support youth in their schools. So I want you to think about this pilot program as something that's really, in my mind, it is about early intervention. It is also about school-based partnership, just more in general. One of the things that we have asked our grantees to do is to really think through all of the different various partners across the continuum of care who support young people in their school with respect to substance use. And so I think a lot of what is being done now is those informational sessions between folks and really starting to think who has what piece of the pie and how can we work together to make a whole pie. So that's partnerships between outpatient providers, recovery organizations, ADPEP coordinators, you name it. We are asking them to go out and talk with these folks, and we're trying to help make those connections for them. So I'm just going to go through at a high level what our 5 pilots are working on. At an ESD level, we have 2 ESDs who are participating, Southern Oregon ESD and Multnomah ESD. Southern Oregon got started a little bit earlier than everybody else because we had funding in hand to support them early on. They're building out universal screening in one school and an integrated screening in another using Teen Intervene as their intervention. In the long term, they're focused on developing in-house outpatient treatment capacity. They have built out operational manuals. So if for folks who are who understand how education service districts work in Oregon, they really are a resource to all of their component school districts. So Southern Oregon ASD is thinking about this as a pilot at a local level as well, and how they develop some processes for the rest of their schools if they want to take up some of this work. MESD is really increasing CADC capacity to support alternative education sites and to think about how to deliver culturally responsive alternatives to on-campus treatment providers. I think that's really important to think about in terms of giving young people options for how they want to talk about substance use, their own substance use, and their own potential recovery. And that they're also building a student information system and referral system that has a specific way to close loops on referrals out to community providers. And so we're really excited about both of these projects because I think they show that real regional effort that the youth were really looking for, as like all these community organizations together with the schools thinking through how they can be supportive in a supportive environment. Next slide. Okay, great. And then we have two school districts and one standalone alternative school. And so we are supporting Jervis School District, which is in Marion County, and Colton District, which is in rural Clackamas County. They're building out alternative to suspension policies and protocols, training and getting developed out SBIRT protocols, and developing clinical capacity and external referral pathways on campus. So This might be where they have a provider who might be providing mental health services and thinking about if that organization has a COA for substance use services, how do we support them with getting some CADC coverage potentially, or how do we bring in some supportive pathways to existing outpatient treatment providers, such as using transportation or paying for transportation to get young people to the services that they need. Bridges Academy, that's in Jefferson County, is working with a culturally specific recovery organization, Triponia Collective, for culturally informed peer recovery circles on their alternative education campus. They're using a Wellbriety as their kind of recovery support system. They're developing out partnerships for Esper. So they've started with recovery, and then they're moving into working on partnerships for Esper, including protocol development, training on Teen Intervene, and co-location of outpatient services through Best Care and Warm Springs. So they are really thinking about alternative education in a rural setting, and how to best bring supports to those young people on campus. So I think that's it. Yeah, I think that's it. So I'm happy to answer any questions. We're pretty early on. We're about 3 months in, and so we are meeting with the grantees individually monthly, and then we're meeting them bi-weekly for training through the ECHO series. And then we're also doing an all grantee every month where our grantees get together to talk about some of the challenges they might be having and some of the main questions that they have, which, it's like Medicaid finance in schools, things like that are a little bit more complex where they might not get into that in great detail in the ECHO. So we're hoping that through the end of next school year, we can start to show some community-driven results on both educational outcomes and then support for students who are needing tier 2 and tier 3 supports. Those are kind of our main evaluation objectives. And while that's not fully scoped yet, we're working on it and hoping to have that set up by the end of the school year.
Yeah, if you want to just call on people, I think Tony had to step away for just a minute. Debbie?
Yep. Sure. Now I know Wes is sweating a little bit, but this was one of the reasons why I really wanted to focus on my subcommittee. And Wes can attest to you, anytime he gets something that sounds kind of like prevention. So this is definitely this. I've hammered Wes a lot with this, and I appreciate the language that he's using. That on our subcommittee, we're really focusing on trying to help kids not ever start or delay as long as they can. But we know that we have young people right now that are in the throes of this. And I appreciate how diligent, Wes, you've been and with your schools and always answering my questions, that with this funding and what funding will continue to come down with the primary prevention, we have this opportunity to see that full continuum, and kids aren't, I think a previous comment, where it's not a moral issue, it's a matter of trying to help them as soon as possible, and we can have both kinds of prevention. So I want to appreciate Wes's work on this, as well as the OYAs, because at some point we really look forward to hearing from them, not only, hey, how could schools support you, but hearing their life experiences and guiding us in our primary prevention work to what would have been some strategies that would have maybe helped them potentially consider delaying. So I just want to appreciate how, Wes, how you've worked with me through all of this and helped me see that it's a one for all effort.
Absolutely, Debbie, and thank you for all of your question. I think that helps us keep our scope in check. And yeah, I think there's a lot of beautiful partnerships that can be made both through primary preventionists and our early interventionists, whether that be that they have clinicians or other school partners who are doing that early intervention work. So I'm really excited about that. Who's next? Sorry,
Shira.
Shira. Hey, Shira.
Thanks for that presentation. I'm curious if there might be opportunity to sort of incorporate the work that is happening in communities that already have some of this going that's separate from your pilot, right? That are like doing their own learnings and figuring out what works and how those programs are funded currently. I think my recovery services program director, Rick, and then my county assistant manager, Monica Steele, did a presentation at the ADPC Learning Collaborative on our school-based recovery services. We use opioid settlement money for that, really similar to like the work that is happening here. And it's new and we're like figuring it out and learning as we go. And so I just think there's probably other communities across the state that have also found a pot of money to fill this gaping hole in our continuum of care. And just wanting to make sure that we get this like sort of collective picture of all the work happening in the state as we figure out ways to sustain the work, what's really going to end up being evidence-based, right? Like what makes the most sense to be standardized across the state. So just wanted to just ask that question, I guess. Thank you.
It's a great question. I think Rick was one of our informational interviews in the process to getting up to this policy development. So shout out Rick. He's great. I think one of the things that this is kind of the conundrum we're in with respect to resources and making sure that we use them in the way that is most in line with what the youth wanted. So the youth said places with no services. So we took that very seriously in thinking about the competitive grant application that went out. I think the long-term vision of this is to support districts who are already doing that work in a more standardized way. Now, how we start to move to a full program, that's really hard to talk about in the resource gap we're in right now. But that is the ultimate goal of this, is to create program parameters so we can start to absorb some of these programs that we know already exist. And in fact, if you go to an ECHO program, if you go to one of the ECHO series, it's a lot of folks who are in this similar boat they have a little bit of programming off the ground, but they really need support in kind of thinking through all of the things that you brought up. Is this evidence-based? What are some of these issues and challenges with confidentiality, which is different in a substance use outpatient program than it is on a school campus? How do we do coordination with other community partners? I think the ECHO will help to drive some of that conversation and keep people engaged while we start to develop out this program and then provide statewide supports for the programs that as we move forward. In a perfect world, I think there would be a liaison that's really working with schools. We did a little bit of this inventorying work last year. That's how we kind of got in contact with Rick, but there needs to be more done. And we're trying to utilize this as like a way to get in to move to that. I hope that answers your question. It's not a perfect answer.
Yeah, thank you. Understand. Appreciate it.
Any other questions for Wes?
Not a question, but just in hearing Shira and there's myself and Katie that are also on the Addictions and Mental Health Planning Advisory Council that it's in charge of advising on the block grants. So this will be work too that will be really interested in hearing how it plays out and potentially, moving forward, being able to advocate for maybe block grants going towards that. So hearing the successes of that is something that I'm paying really close attention to, and I'm sure Katie is also.
Appreciate that. I also like just hearing your question, Debbie, and like the dynamic about I think the prevention component of this. we're like walking that path with public health, right? Because they own that piece of work. So a lot of similarities were coming up for me as you were kind of talking about this pilot program. So would love to connect on that too.
All right, if folks don't have any more questions for Wes, and Katie also says she's been involved with the Eastern Oregon schools, which we really appreciate. I will go ahead and launch into kind of the bigger conversation about the quarterly update. I really want to thank Wes for his work on this, and I hope what you all see in this is the power of the plan that you have put together, that even though we really prioritize things that take no money, that are building infrastructure for the future, because folks are looking to this as this guiding document, when there is funding available, they're looking to your plan. So that is very exciting. But that said, they probably wouldn't be handing us the money if they didn't have the trust in Wes and Wes's ability to truly center youth in the conversation. So just want to give that shout out to Wes. Thank you. And now we are going to give you your very first quarterly plan update. We're really excited. I'm going to pause for questions several times. I'm going to start with the infrastructure, and then each team member is going to give you an update, and we'll kind of pause for questions throughout. Really looking for overall feedback too, though. I will say as we go into this, our plan is to come back to you every quarter at our meetings to do updates. And we don't know exactly what that's going to look like yet. We're still working on our dashboard game. So hopefully that will improve over the next couple of months. But really excited to start this today. And I will just say there's way more going on than I think any of us anticipated. So much has kind of launched at once in the first quarter, which is incredibly exciting, but also just want everybody to know that the staff is working really, really hard. And we're working really hard to keep track of everything. So please feel free to raise your hand, but just know I'll be stopping throughout. Next slide. So just a couple of reminders for everyone going into this. I get asked a lot, or I hear in meetings, I haven't seen your plan. And I know it's because people are waiting for me to give them a big, printed out publication. And as you know, we decided not to do that. So the website is really, our plan is not a report. The website Stephanie did a great job really building it to be something that is alive, that you can always refer people to. It has dashboards on it. We're updating the dashboards with status. Of course, behind that, we have thousands of lines in a smart sheet that we're tracking things at the individual agency level. But you have that. We are trying to be very transparent about this. There is an executive summary. I think it's about 15, 20 pages that is linked from the website. It is also available in Spanish. And we have a plain language version so that anyone can understand it. So really just kicking it off with, remember, this is your platform. If you ever want to look back, if you ever want to refer anybody, it's the website. Next slide. So this is just kind of going in a little bit deeper. It's a web-based tool. Hopefully these links are all live in your materials. You click on that tool, that takes you to the plan page. You can go to each individual section. We're hoping to continue to build those sections out as we move forward. Stephanie has a great vision of some fast facts in each area, so we can really feature data that we want folks to be paying attention to. So we want this, again, to continue to be alive. Next slide. So quick reminder of the process and how we got here. We took everything you all voted on in the comprehensive plan last, I guess it was November. We prioritized those based on feasibility and impact. And then we developed a work plan for 2026 to 2028. So we're taking this a little bit in chunks, so we make sure we're evaluating as we go. So we prioritize certain strategies. There's some things we're not going to start until next year or 2028. That was approved by the governor's office. And now we're starting our quarterly updates to you all this month. Just so you know, coming up to this at our quarterly state agency meeting, which is the last month of each quarter, we went over this with our state agencies. So we're kind of getting in the rhythm. The engine is going that we envisioned a couple of years ago to have that state agencies. We're working with them to figure out where they're at on the plan. And then we come to you all the next month and present it to you. We will have a biannual report due to the legislature this July. So what we have planned to do, instead of presenting, if you will, the comprehensive plan at the end of 2025, we will give an overview of the plan in July of 2026 and give the quarterly updates that we're giving to you all now. And then just a reminder about youth. We get asked a lot, and back, you'll remember House Bill 4002, we were charged along with the System of Care Advisory Council to devise a youth substance use disorder strategy in particular. That is now part of our statute. And so there are the OYA strategies that, as you know, Wes just demonstrated that the youth put forward. There is also separate strategies in the SOCAC plan and separate strategies in our plan, like prevention and recovery. And all those youth strategies together make up the youth substance use disorder strategy for the state. So just a reminder there that one, we share that with the System of Care Advisory Council. And OYA, of course. Next slide. So the plan itself, as you all approved it, had 29 strategies, which seems very manageable across all of your areas. 74 activities. So for each strategy, there's activities to get us to those outcomes we're looking for. And then underneath the activities, there are actions. So the actions are really drilled down at the individual agency and team level. So when we get down to that level, there are currently in the plan, and it's going to continue to grow, there's 305 actions. Of those 305, 111 are already in progress. 172 were scheduled to start right away. So, some of those are like 6 months, some of those are a year. So that's why not every single thing has been started, but 111 things have been started, which is pretty darn impressive. And again, this isn't the greatest visual. I think it's a little early for us to do pie charts. It's a little unwieldy to do a Gantt chart. So we're still figuring that out. So any feedback folks have on how you'd like to see this information, we are more than happy to hear from you. So I'm just going to pause there before I go into infrastructure. Do folks have any questions or thoughts or feedback just on like how we're going to kind of go through being accountable to you all each quarter as we move through the plan? And I know this is very wonky.
I appreciate these updates. It's great to see a scoreboard, so to speak, and know that we're moving the ball down the field, if I can use that analogy. And I think there's some good first downs in here. So thank you.
Thank you for the analogy, Debbie. You've always got a good one for us. So I'm going to give an update on infrastructure before I turn it over to the team. So you'll remember, Ashley, we can go ahead and go to the next slide. And I appreciate that this is super tiny text, and I apologize. I just thought it would be helpful to have it all on one slide. Can't really do it for the continuum of care pieces, but we can for infrastructure. I'll just remind everyone that infrastructure was what you all really held as commissioners. that was your piece of the plan. What do we need to build as an infrastructure in the state in order to address substance use disorder? And really, you were really focused on data, having the information that we need to make budget policy recommendations, working towards stable and sustainable funding, ensuring that we have a stable staffing at the ADPC level. I think that's something that we all recognize. Having this team of subject matter experts has been really effective with the ADPC. So this is the overall kind of what you all put forward. I'm going to talk mostly today about the financial assessment. So before I get into that, I'll just remind you, and some of our new folks, if you want to kind of go into a deep dive here, I can send you some of the materials that we put together as we started building our plan for the comprehensive plan. One of a couple things happened. In 2024, the legislature had directed, I think probably back in 2022 or 2023, I would need Representative Sanchez to remind me of the date, had directed OHA to do a financial analysis across state agencies to really show where the money is being spent in the substance use disorder system. We often get asked, where's the money go? What is it being used for? That overlaps with our statutory duty as the ADPC to make budget policy recommendations for state agencies. So it's kind of a chicken and an egg. We can't really make budget policy priorities unless we know where all the money's going. So in 2024, OHA contracted with, I'm forgetting their names, PCG, to do a financial assessment that showed where funding was going across the continuum of care. And really importantly for us as we built this plan, what were the major funding sources that we were depending on? And for the 21-23 biennium, it was primarily federal funding, mostly Medicaid match, that made up the bulk of the spending in the substance use disorder system. Then it was cannabis revenue that's allocated through the Measure 110 Behavioral Health Resource Networks. We all know that was a major shift that took place in the past 5 years. And then was that, I think I'm forgetting one thing. It was something else, and then it was general fund. So it really showed that we are very dependent. Maybe it was alcohol and wine revenue or something. Showed that we are really dependent on A, federal policy, which is something we all have to think about. B, cannabis, and to a lesser extent, alcohol revenue, which is very volatile, as we now know from the cannabis prices. 21-23 didn't include opioid settlement funds. So this biennium will. So as part of this plan, we agreed to take this back on internally and conduct this assessment across state agencies as the ADPC. So that is the background leading up to this. This has been a really fun undertaking. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. So in the first, I know this is very project managey, this slide. So let us know if you like stuff like this or if you really don't like it. So we worked with the governor's office to develop a letter. So the governor herself, and I attached this to the calendar invite for the commissioners. The governor asked agencies to participate in this financial assessment. So we got high-level buy-in. We socialized it at our state agency meetings so folks knew that it was coming. We got feedback from the OHA staff and other agencies who had completed this for the 21-23 biennium. And there's things that we know, but because it was a contractor and it wasn't done internally, there's also things we don't know about the last assessment. So we did decide to do a template that, you know, I'm sure we'll have tons of recommendations and improvements after this year, but that was a recommendation to us that hadn't been done before. And then we asked all of our agencies to provide us with the financial information. And so we've been working with the agencies over the past 6 to 8 weeks. Their responses are actually due the end of this week. So I don't have any results to share with you today, but I did want to just go over in detail with you all the process, because I think this is what you all have envisioned for a very long time, that the ADPC would have this role across state agencies to be able to bring this information together. This report will not be apples to apples with the last one. There's some gaps that we found in the last one that agencies are going to give us information. There's more agencies responding to it. What are some examples? Housing and Community Services, Office of State Police, OLCC. A lot of our agencies weren't included last time, and some of that was last time didn't ask about state agency staff. So we are also including the cost of state agency staff across our agencies to the extent that that's something they can put together, and classifying it by the role. As you can imagine, in like Department of Corrections and the Oregon Youth Authority, we have staff that we are paying for that are directly providing services, but we should also be counting the OLCC staff that are conducting the regulatory and the oversight functions. So our goal is to have this report developed and presented to the governor by July 1. We haven't really talked with the governor's office exactly what all the end products are going to be. Our biggest deliverables, I will say to you all, are that we have that high level analysis of what are the revenue sources that are funding substance use disorder in Oregon, so that we know, for instance, if cannabis revenue is still number 2, and we know that funding is going to continue to go down, that's going to help us make recommendations to the state about, okay, if cannabis revenue is going down, here are the things you state need to think about, and where you might want to think about plugging in investments to make up for that, or not, depending on what we see. That spending by agency, so that you can see kind of, okay, this agency, this is the role they're playing, both programmatically and how much funding. And then lastly, to really show you the continuum of care and how much funding is being plugged in across the continuum of care. We're looking at some things a little differently this time. Last time, peer services were completely pulled out, and this time we are trying to plug in peer services as best we can within the continuum. So really separating out treatment, for instance, from recovery, from harm reduction. There's 2 subparts to it, and then I think I'm going to be probably quiet. The 2 subparts are House Bill 3321, which Wes is going to give you an update. That is primary prevention assessment. So as agencies tell us that they are using some funding source for primary prevention, then Third Horizon, who is our contractor for 3321, is doing a deep dive at those agencies about where that funding is going. We're also doing a deeper dive on naloxone funding, and Mara will catch you up on this, so that as part of our goal to make sure that any spending on naloxone is the most efficient use of resources possible. So we'll be doing that as well. And then the governor, this is something that the governor is going to use in the development of her recommended budget and making decisions as we go forward about where we spend our funding. I think this really sets us up well to start making those budget policy recommendations, to start weighing in on, in lean budget times. You might want to think about investing over here, keeping this funding, so that you don't have a blow up over here, things like that. So that is the financial assessment. I know it's very wonky. It's very exciting. It's a whole lot of information. Do folks have questions or input on what you want to see when we come back to you with our findings, hopes and dreams, etc.? Anyone overwhelmed by the amount of information you're going to have soon? Yeah. It's a lot, right? But I think this is, again, I think this is some of the things that you all envision for the commission, I think are now coming to fruition. And now is the hard work of us taking in all this information and deciding what it means for the state. Shira.
Like a related, but kind of separate question. Just, I was talking to Sheriff Phillips this morning, who's our sheriff here in Clatsop County. He sits on the opioid settlement board. And just like reflecting on kind of the disconnect between like the state agencies having this being required to follow the strategic plan of the ADPC, but then these separate councils or commissions or boards that end up dealing with substance use related funding are separate from these state agencies, and thus it's like recommended you look at our strategic plan, but like there's no teeth in that. I think like the burn was another good example. Now that sits under OHA, so that's like separate, but I guess I'm just pointing it out that it's another opportunity for misalignment in our state systems when we have, you know, marijuana tax dollar revenue, opioid settlement dollar revenue that's sitting outside of the oversight of a state organization. And then thus they're not sort of subject to the structure that exists for funding like that, it seems. So for what it's worth.
I really appreciate that. And Debbie is privy to, we've been starting to talk about what that could look like. And Shira, I think that's a perfect example of where it's like, for instance, the settlement board, it says in statute that they should align with the ADPC strategic plan, but we've never really dug into what does that mean. And so we're having some conversations with AMPAC. We're having some conversations with the settlement board about what that might look like. Some things we've thought about is it probably needs to be the ADPC that says whether the spending aligns or doesn't align. It probably shouldn't just be a check box, right? And so what does that look like, whether it's that we're coming in during the funding process and kind of weighing in, and maybe there's a point value given to ADPC alignment, or does it drive, like with settlement board, does it really drive like, okay, these are the prioritized strategies the settlement board is going to fund, and it has to really align more closely. So we're having those conversations, and I love that you brought that up, because I think it is exactly the kind of thing that the statute for the ADPC envisions. And we're never going to know unless we try, right? So we're in that process right now. So I think more to come on what some of that process is going to look like. But I think that is exactly right. If we are in charge of making budget policy priorities, we should be the ones making what sometimes is going to be a tough decision to say, you really need to prioritize, for instance, opioid settlement funds and Measure 110, we say in the comprehensive plan, you need to prioritize that for prevention, recovery, and harm reduction. Those are the least funded. These are the most flexible services. Treatment gets a lot of money. And so we really need to start prioritizing these for the things that are not otherwise funded.
Yeah, totally. No, I super appreciate that. And then also this like sustainability piece, right? Like, can't just constantly throw a little bit of money at new programs and then not uphold the programs that had a little bit of money last year, which I feel like happens a lot in these types of councils that feel a little disconnected from the larger plan or intention. So yeah, thank you.
And what's that sustainable funding model that we need to get to? Because the whole substance use disorder system it's built on a very shifting, sandy foundation. Yeah, so you're gonna have a lot more information to kind of put in our tool belt to make those arguments, which is exciting. next slide, I have one more quick slide, and I'm so sorry Fernando left because I know that he is passionate about this. You will remember that you all recommended, this is one of the statutory changes that we made in House Bill 2929, that state agencies now need to give notice to the ADPC when they are updating or promulgating rules that relate to substance use disorder. This is one that we are still working on our process, to be completely transparent. We have worked out a process of notification with most of our agencies. Some of them we need to go in and pull the information. I think we're still working out capacity wise what we then do with that. But I think the hope and the vision is that when appropriate, we can bring these things to the committees and provide input on rulemaking. If nothing else, this at least gives us as we say here, institutional memory where we're tracking these rules over time. And in some agencies, it could be something very small, right? And in some agencies, it could be something very big. So just wanted to give that update. If there's anyone on the commission who kind of wants to be more into rulemaking or anything like that, please let us know. It's also one too that sometimes you all know that they're coming down the pike before we do. So please always feel free to let us know what's coming and what we should be concerned about so we can let folks know at the very least. So that's the rulemaking update. And if there's no other questions for me, I'm happy to answer more questions about infrastructure. Oh, there's Manta.
Hey, thanks, Annalise. Thanks for the presentation. This is kind of back on the beginning for how we would like to see you report out on this. I'm just curious if there's so many activities that are going to be underway, but what I would be curious to know in addition to kind of overall what's happening, if any of the initiatives are hitting roadblocks, either from state agencies kind of not engaged in the work, or did we create an activity that actually just can't get operationalized? Because sometimes you make strategies and when it gets to the person's desk that's got to do it, doesn't make a lot of sense. So if there's a way to kind of tease that stuff out to kind of keep us in the loop on, that would be interesting to me anyway.
Thanks, Manta. That's really helpful. All right, well, I will turn it over to Wes. We did along those lines, we did try and focus on successes. Again, it's so early, but also just at risks so that we are starting to monitor those. But I really like the suggestion also that we really look at the why behind the roadblocks as we start to encounter those. All right, I'll turn over to Wes with prevention.
Yeah, I'm ready to go. Next slide. So the big updates for prevention, we are well underway with respect to the House Bill 3321 primary prevention assessment. So that is, as Annalise mentioned and alluded to earlier, taking the financial information that we're getting in from the agencies as part of the overall financial assessment for the subsystem of care. And having our partners at Third Horizon Strategies work with the agencies through programmatic interviews to do some programmatic analysis. And so a lot of those conversations are already underway. Once we get through the state portion of that, there will be some local engagement, both at schools, LPHAs, CCOs, in thinking through some of the work or some of the funding that we know is flowing from the state down to a community level. State agency partners have been so gracious with us in supporting that work, and a more thorough update on that work will happen on next prevention meeting. So not this Wednesday, but the coming Wednesday, Third Horizon will actually give some updates on that work. We've already begun the scoping of the Center of Excellence. So we are doing scoping conversations at every one of our meetings for the rest of the calendar year. So right now we're talking about audience. But if anybody would like to join those are well underway, and we're getting some good ideas of putting a little bit more detail on who the Center of Excellence would serve and what support services those would be. ADPC and ODE are working on. Oh, this is actually almost just out of date. So ODE is formally launching an advisory committee for their rule set related to substance use prevention plans at a school district level, as well as their work on health education supports. ADPC will have two, I can't remember if it's 2 or 3 seats, but we'll have formal seats on that committee as well. That application is out to the community. And so primary prevention will really have a seat working with ODE to relay some of the information from the prevention committee, but as well gather larger input from communities. We are right on schedule with prevention. I'm so excited. We've hit all of our milestones in the first quarter, so I'm excited that this is moving forward quite quickly. Questions on primary prevention? All right, can we move? Is OYA next? I think it is. Yep. So I'll let Will talk a little bit more about this, but OYA is working with the recovery committee to help support some youth voice in the definition of the recovery community center conversation. So Will and Bay Area First Step came and presented to the OYA last Wednesday, and we had some really robust conversations around what it means for youth recovery center. What would it mean for a recovery community center to be youth centered or specific for young people? So that work is well underway, and we're hoping that we can continue to work with the recovery committee to support that effort as the recovery committee defines what a recovery community center is for Oregon, as well as recovery spaces, youth-friendly recovery spaces. Already talked about the school pilots, home. So our strategies related to where youth live. We had an RFP designed to include SUD services for the intensive in-home behavioral treatment program. Unfortunately, in the latest round of agency budget cuts, that money went away. And so we know we have an RFP drafted, but we do not have financing for the SUD pilot for the IBHT program. And so that is definitely one of our at-risk strategies because that was a main driver of our work on supporting young people where they live. We are also on the plus side, we're also in discussions on early discussions on supports for youth in ODHS care who are treatment skeptical. So really that engagement to treatment and peer based support that is necessary for young people who might be in ODHS care and connected them with some centralized resources. So we're early in that conversation, but we're really excited by some of the ideas that are emerging. I think across the board, our current at risk with respect to the youth, it's a lot of newness with the young people, or at least organizing systems a little bit differently, and that costs money. So agency budget reductions have indefinitely delayed funding for IIBHT expansion, and it definitely risks additional positions both in the education and the carceral settings. And so that's something that we're keeping in mind as we start to plan around that as much as possible and have discussions about what can we do in the absence of financing. Questions for OYA?
Wes, the only thing I would say, and this kind of goes to what Shira was saying too, and maybe we can find out that they're not necessarily your pilot schools, but some schools across the state that are kind of already started doing some of this. And then I think with the work that Alana Russell's doing, at ODE, and that schools have to turn in their substance use prevention plans, that we might be able to dig some stuff out of that. And maybe it's not like we don't necessarily have the money, but maybe we have some things to learn from that. Maybe some schools can help us see, hey, it doesn't necessarily have to be money as long as we're using what money we have efficiently and we're collaborating. So I think we'll still might have a better story to tell on that than what we know yet.
Absolutely.
Okay, we can move on to, I think recovery is next. Will is up.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Ashley. Hey, everyone. I'm going to talk about the recovery committee and the recovery work that's in the comprehensive plan right now. And so in 2025, we developed 4 priorities. The first was the expansion of recovery community centers and recovery spaces. Then we had recovery housing, peer services, and recovery-friendly workplaces. And so the top priority for 2026 is recovery community centers and recovery spaces and the expansion of those. So one problem we have, so we all have this sort of feeling for what a recovery center is, but we don't have it written down anywhere. Like a definition, like an actual definition of recovery center. The same goes for recovery spaces. And so the recovery committee has spent the first part of the year working on a definition for recovery community centers. And it's a working definition. Well, we have something that we're proud of, and it's not finalized yet as we look to engage some other partners. So I'm not going to read the whole definition, but I want to give you at least a little something. So Recovery Community Center is a non-residential, peer-operated, paid director and recovery staff center. There's drop-in hours, peer support, recovery and social support services, and it's typically free of charge to participants. And then we go on to define participants and define recovery and social support services. So that's sort of what we're working with right now for recovery community centers. And we're also dipping into the work with recovery spaces as well. And I guess kind of how we're thinking of recovery spaces is like a third space for youth. And then something else that came up was like a potential recovery wing in a carceral setting. And so we asked ourselves too, why might this definition be useful or necessary? It might help us work with agency partners, could potentially become statute, and maybe it's just generally shared terminology for funding and potential funding. So let's see here. So we are gathering in early May. That's going to be Recovery Community Center directors and other partners for more engagement on the definition, for one thing, and then also to discuss funding and that situation for recovery community centers. So as Wes mentioned, we are working with the Youth Addiction Alliance, and we had a great meeting last week. We shared with OYA what we've accomplished for the definition, and they shared back on how a center might look and be defined for youth. And we plan to keep doing back and forth on this definitional stuff because it's going really well. And let's see, there is like a budget note at the bottom here. And that at risk isn't super well defined right now, but maybe some common funding sources discussed around this work are the burn funding for recovery programs, as well as some settlement board funding. But I want to emphasize that there are 2 separate discussions coming up on the funding for RCCs. And So that's actually this week's recovery committee meeting, and that gathering I mentioned in early May. So we're going to get a chance to bounce around some ideas around that funding, and I think we'll have a more complete sort of budget picture and analysis of risks once we all get a chance to do that. So, yeah, I'm happy to talk with anyone individually too. Yeah, so any questions?
Yeah, this is Sharon. This might be a question for Wes. When we were meeting with OYA, our guests mentioned that there were problems with bringing in youth to their recovery centers. And I was wondering if Wes had a sense of where those conflicts in rules came from and like how we can avoid those when we're planning here.
Yeah, Sharon, we're actively investigating the issues that brought up. That was kind of some news to me on specific requirements at a facility level. But we're gonna work through that and get some clarification for everybody that was involved in the meeting.
Okay, if there's no more questions for Will, Mitch is up next with treatment.
Hey everybody. I also just started getting the hiccups right before this, so I apologize if that happens. For those of you that aren't aware, there are four kind of main priority areas for treatment: access to evidence-based or tribal-based practices, increasing or improving the kind of first access point of treatment services, smoothing or improving transitions from different care, and then the last being improving quality while ensuring kind of accountability up and downstream. Uh, those four areas make up a ton of work. And one of the things that I think is worth saying at the outset of all of this is that the treatment world is a little bit different compared to the rest of our committees, in that almost everything that is funding it is coming from Medicaid, which means a lot more eyes and a lot more red tape and a lot more laws to follow. So everything that we're doing is very careful and kind of being considerate of those different things that might be intersecting. So one of the things that I know Katie will talk about a little bit later is where we've been at in terms of identifying a priority. We're taking a very kind of narrow focus at our treatment continuum so we can align with a couple different things OHA is doing, but also more importantly, I think make sure that everything we're doing is effective. So that's really going to be focused on withdrawal management in this year. And the theme that I've been telling folks is that we're looking at things in 1 year so that the next year is our action year, repeat and rinse from there on. However, the cool thing is we already had some successes this year. So for those of you that also aren't aware, 2024, we were asked to complete a study on MOUD access and implement any of our recommendations as a result, implement any of those recommendations as part of our comprehensive plan. So some of those things found their way into our comprehensive plan. One of those being a goal of shoring up access to MOUD within treatment settings. What I'll say is this actually was a little bit of a happy accident. One of our recommendations for MOUD was actually that there will be and this is still in progress, but there's an action of adding attestation language to intake documents so we can just ensure people are being talked to about MOUD or being offered referrals for MOUD without increasing admin burden. When we were talking about this with our partners in the treatment court, they went, hey, can we do that with our case management screening tool so we can also stay aligned with what everybody else is doing? And so we helped convene a meeting between OHA and OJD to make sure that they were even using the same list of medications and making sure that was all current, because that subject matter expertise is different. So that was a really early win. Right at the start of the year, it entered their case management tool, and hopefully by the end of this year, we'll have a baseline to start making some changes to. OHA has also initiated a work group to identify pathways for peers to provide some services in hospital settings. This really fell under the treatment plan goal area because of its potential impact on transitions for care services. This is being kind of kept in line with The recovery committee's work of shoring up peer, it'll come to me in a second. I'm blanking on the word, but peer, Will, if you could help me out there. Whatever the word is that my brain is blanking on a Monday. But basically making sure that peers are actually, being treated the way that we want and being able to have the jobs that they are hired to do across settings. So that's happening at the same time. The Rural Health Transformation Project team has been working with us also to identify some potential EMS buprenorphine and future ambulatory withdrawal management projects. Yeah, that too. And so, really, what's kind of been nice here, to the point earlier about feasibility and cost, there are a couple parts in our work plan that right now would be very costly to immediately implement. So in our work plan itself, it says that the ADP staff, which is me in the ADPC staff, which is me in this case, would be staying apprised of any work groups or future opportunities. And that's been something that our OHA partners have taken very seriously. And each time there's an opportunity, they've reached out and we've been able to help them. And we've had some pretty cool unintended benefits already of our APAC analysis that we received earlier this year that was collecting from the years 2016 to 2023. And we've been able to use health data to actually help drive decisions, which I know was something the commission wanted to see. So that's been really fun to be supporting. Last cool success is OHA is implementing a federal benefit for reentry programs. This is really supporting that very challenging 18 to 26 age range, in particular. Anybody who has been in the foster care system has the ability to just self-attest that that was them, and they have access to these benefits. If you're interested in learning about that program, it is in our March treatment materials. There's a full presentation in there as well as a recording. And there were some really thoughtful questions from the committee to help understand how that was operationalized. In terms of at-risks, we are in the year 2026, which means there's a lot of changes at a federal level that sometimes happen for 24 hours and then no longer happen anymore. And so it's just a very turbulent time. So we're staying on top of those as hopefully they don't happen, but when they do, we're trying to work as quickly as we can to do things like we have a claims analysis deliverable that we did to understand potential impacts if the subsidy went away. And those are the things that we're trying to do very quickly behind the scenes. And then the other thing to make note here is Oregon is, for the first time, the first state that is going in front of CMS for its SUD 1115 waiver. Usually we have a couple other states who have done this each review cycle, so we can say, oh, here's what they responded well to, here's what they didn't respond well to. This time we are leading in that effort, so that is just kind of an area we're not sure what will happen. Things that you might be tracking that are related to that is the contingency management benefit that I know we put in this most recent extension, but we aren't sure what will happen with it yet. And then the last thing to note is there are some reporting functions that we've heard have been impacted through some funding challenges that is going to either potentially delay or change some of the deliverables that we were planning on. One of those being the care coordination report from CCOs, some other areas of that. I am working with that team right now to try to at least get smaller bits of that information so it's in line with the things we're prioritizing in the treatment committee. So maybe this year we just get withdrawal management related information, and then the next year we can do something else. So I'm trying to negotiate what that can look like, but that is, I think, our biggest rocky moment. And that's all I have for updates. Any questions?
Well, I'll keep us moving so we have time to finish before committee updates. Mara is up next with health and safety interventions.
Great. Hi, everyone. So just a reminder, y'all voted this through. We changed our committee name to Health and Safety Interventions. We do the work of harm and or risk reduction, in case anyone was confused about that. So we have had, there was, as a reminder, there was 4 strategies listed under our section of the continuum of care. We want to talk about naloxone, we want to talk about drug checking, we want to talk about access to harm or risk reduction services at the state and local levels. And then we wanted to talk about cross-sector education. In talking to the committee, their number one, if they said if we had to prioritize, our number one priority would be naloxone. And so that is like where we're doing our main focus this year is all things naloxone. So I'm starting at the bottom and then I'll move up. We have done some collaborations. The financial analysis is setting us up really well to be able to learn all about how the system works across the state, like who's getting naloxone from where, why is this person not purchasing through the multi-state purchasing system, how can we connect folks to the correct, the easiest, the correct, and the cheapest way to get naloxone. Something that that was received really well and that our committee was really enthused about was the idea of we want to see everyone in the state of Oregon, from top to bottom, left to right, whether you are the director of an agency, a peer, a provider at a CBO or an LPHA or a concerned parent. We want everyone to be able to know how to get naloxone, where to get naloxone, how to use it, and like to make sure that they are getting it for the best price. So in service of that, the financial analysis is really setting us up to move things along really nicely. We're having a lot of really great conversations and we're streamlining some processes. It's been great. Save Lives Oregon has graciously put in some questions into their survey that they send out to their recipients for us. And so we should be receiving that data soon to understand a little bit more about Save Lives Oregon naloxone recipients. And then OLCC at the beginning of the year launched their hemp registry, and that was to ensure the testing and labeling and safety requirements. I don't have a current update on how that is going. I know there were some hiccups at the beginning of the year, but I will have some more information on that once I speak to some of the folks at OLCC shortly. The other thing that the sort of the way that I've been thinking about this is like in everything that we are doing this year, we're sort of setting the table for the rest of the strategies to move forward. So at some point we will talk about drug checking and what that looks like. But right now, sort of behind the scenes, I am, accessing folks who are utilizing drug checking services. I'm accessing like people at different levels to sort of get a ground level understanding of what this looks like in the state. And what we're doing is just sort of setting the table. We're not, saying this is what we're gonna do in the future yet, because you wouldn't put a hot pan down on the table without a pad underneath it, So we're just setting the table right now to find out where we're at so that we can figure out where to go from there. When you all voted on the name change for our committee, Stacy gave a presentation. Stacy's the chair of our health and safety interventions, and she gave a short presentation about why we were changing the name. And I think that ties into our current at-risks, which was last July, the Office of the President and then SAMHSA put out these letters that basically said that they were reprioritizing harm and risk reduction and who would be receiving funding, who was prioritized for funding, et cetera. And then, as Mitch mentioned, for 24 hours, funding was gone and then it was back and all of this. So the continuously shifting federal guidelines and funding has a lot of the folks who are doing this risk reduction, health and safety interventions work sort of on edge. And so that is a big challenge to be able to like come together in community and trust each other enough to do this work together. So I think that is our biggest at risk, but we have some pretty exciting successes so far. It is slow going, but I think that's purposeful because we want to make sure that we're doing it right and we're not, to bring back my metaphor, burning the table with the hot pan. So I'm happy to take any questions. And I will say this, as I have said to my committee members, my virtual door is always open. So if there's ever any questions about any of these strategies, I'm happy to hop on a call and chat about it.
Thanks, Mara. So I have just one more slide that really just sums up the actions at risk overall that folks have alluded to. I think we all know we're in tough budget times. So, things we are just paying very close attention to and asking a lot of questions of our agency partners. We could see agency reorganizations or reprioritization of work. You saw at least one example of something that we had actually listed as an early success in the OGAS space, which was including substance use disorder in intensive in-home behavioral health treatment. That ended up that funding had to get taken away. So these things are going to happen, but we're tracking them. And I think what we'll probably do in the future is as we see setbacks or roadblocks, we'll probably highlight those for you and say, here's what's coming next. Here's the specific action or how we might consider tweaking that. It's just too early at this point. So that's, agency reorganizations or reprioritization that could cause us all to have to come back to the table and retool, which is fine. Staff and budget across agencies are at capacity. I think you all see this in your work too. Folks are stressed. So keeping that in mind as we move forward with our work. And then there's just the overall prioritization of substance use disorder. And I think it's really important for us as staff and you all as commissioners to make sure that we are consistently raising substance use disorder as a top priority so that it doesn't get deprioritized for other budget needs. So those are things that we're just tracking. More to come. As I said earlier, we are happy to take any feedback or thoughts or ideas from folks about what this looks like going forward, and what would be most helpful for our time together for you all to have. This was the first one, and we just wanted to show you, it's working. I think you put together a really good plan, and so we're really proud of it. So Tony, I'll turn it back to you. I don't know that there's much left to be said for committee updates after all of those updates, but I'll turn it back over to you.
Yeah, no, I was thinking the same thing. Is there any of the committee chairs that would like to provide any additional updates aside from what's been covered? I know I don't from the recovery committee. Okay. Next, we'll move to public comment. Did we have anybody request public comment in the chat?
We did not have anybody submit. Oh, I do see that
John,
John
go
has-
ahead. John Epstein, go ahead.
Great, thanks. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I appreciate this meeting and all the commissioners and everybody involved with the plan. That's incredible progress and super exciting. Thank you. And also echo what Annalise said, Tony, about thinking about you and the difficult situation 4D found itself in this weekend. My comment is about cannabis, and wanted to share the observation that in the short session, Dr. Reynolds put forward some legislation that got after a very, very narrow part of youth protection, and it was focused on toddler poisonings with a really narrowed down bill that aimed to do some serving size and packaging sorts of things. And it didn't make it out of House committee. It made it out of her Senate committee, Behavioral Health, Childhood and Behavioral Health, but it didn't make it out of the House committee, which was an economic committee. And as I understand it, there's going to be future legislation that she's bringing forward and other advocates are excited about. And what I wanted to know, and I shared this in an email with Wes, but I just wanted to make a comment here, that I think it would be really valuable if the ADPC found a space and some resource. I heard your point, Annalise, that you're at capacity, but during this year to produce something like a white paper or set of white papers that pulled together some of the latest research that's out there about cannabis and youth, and suggested maybe not a menu, but a list of possible policies or policies that other states have used or ones that you've researched that could be protective for youth in the state. When you look at SAMHSA survey data, we're near the top in every one of the cannabis metrics: perception of harm, daily or monthly use, annual use, first time initiation, drug use disorder for 12 to 17-year-olds. And I can't think of a better group of people than those on ADPC to put forward a list of policies that could be helpful in that space. That might take out a little bit, well, I don't know if it'll prevent, but it at least could play a valuable role in the conversation that would take place in Salem that otherwise is like industry versus one legislator's ideas. And Dr. Reynolds brought a great group of experts, but it was really kind of my observation was it wasn't, it didn't have all the wisdom that I know ADPC could bring and has brought to other conversations. So that's my suggestion. You don't have to answer me here. Obviously, this is just public comment, but I think it could be a really, really valuable role for ADPC to play. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, John, for submitting that. We'll take it into consideration. Anyone else for public comment? Okay, looks like in closing with my notes here, in May we'll be focusing on carceral settings. Annalise, do you have a little preview before we depart?
It's a really good question, Tony. Mitch and Wes, I'm not sure that we have a little preview.
In process.
No. I think it is in process. The tentative plan is to have some of our agency partners come and present to you all on the great substance use disorder work and some of the barriers that they're facing in carceral settings. And Mitch is nodding. So I think it was a good preview.
Okay. Meeting before the meeting before the meeting. Okay. Okay. Well, congratulations to Kelly Minty Morris and Sharon Dursey Martin, pending governor approval, of course. And just shout out to Annalise, you and your team for taking our plan and putting it into action and providing the updates and all the work you're doing. It's greatly appreciated.
Thanks, Tony. If anybody has any quick announcements, since we have a few minutes, I will say, in case folks didn't read the newsletter on Friday, it is Alcohol Awareness Month. So we did talk a little bit about alcohol awareness and how our plan, although it is substance blind, does connect to alcohol. I know I had a nice experience thinking about that. I presented at the Dewey Task Force conference a week ago, and it was a nice way to think about that. So if anybody needs any materials on that, feel free to refer to that. And I know Mara is working with Tim on some more substance specific information for the next newsletter.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Y'all have a good day. Thank you so much.